20th of March, Rabbi Moore, Parsha Hashavua, Vayikra.
Hey, sorry about that.
Hi, Rabbi. I can't see you.
I know, because I haven't turned every day I have to turn on the thing. Now you can see me?
Yes.
Can you see me now?
Yes.
Good. Okay, sorry about that. Let's go. Okay. We were up to, I'm not sure actually we had finished. Just 1 second. I'm just going to answer this call and tell them I'm going to call them back later.
Okay.
Hello? אני לא יכול לדבר עכשיו, אני מוסר שיעור, אני אתחיל, שלום, אוקיי, בסדר, אני אחר כך אני אתחיל בקשר, בסדר. אוקיי. Yeah, okay, we were up to Lamor, I believe, yeah. By the way, there's a whole, the Malbim has a major thesis on the previous Rashi when it says, not the previous one, but it says there 13 times, it says, El Moshe Vel Aaron, and negative that, the 13 miutim to exclude, there was said to Moshe to say to Aaron. That's what we had the previous Rashi. Malbim has, I'm not going to go into it now, but the Malbim has a major thesis because Lamaisi makes a cheshbon. There's 17 times it says Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron. Sometimes it says Vayedaber, and sometimes it says Vayomer. So the kids, the Malbim tries to find, how should I say, a Seder, where you get to the number 13. Okay.
I think Meir was doing this.
Sorry?
I think Meir was the one who was reading.
Yeah, it was. I was going to give it to read because it was a very long Rashi. Okay, let's do the last Rashi then, Meir. Lamor, the last Rashi of Pasuk Aleph.
Okay, Lamor is saying, okay. Tzei be'emor lahem divrei kibushin. Okay, so go out and say to them words of kibushin. What's that, victory?
No, kibushin means words of Musa. I don't know how to say kibushin.
Oh, words of Musa.
Of reproof. Things which like, actually it is connected with, kibushin actually means to conquer, but it means also to subjugate. Right? Divrei kibushin, when somebody says, it means he gives words of subjugation, means put the person in his place. But here in this sense, it means the words of Musa. Okay?
Okay, good. Let's see.
Now, so can I just point out what Rashi's question is? In the next pasuk it says, Daber b'nei Yisrael v'omarta alehem. Speak to the Israel and you shall say to them. So obviously the term Lamor over here doesn't mean, as we find generally it means, Hashem spoke to Moshe, Hashem spoke to him from the tent of meeting, Lamor, to say to them. Anyway, I think it's at this juncture, but I'm not sure with Dafka here. There's a major, I mentioned this a number of times, there's a major machlokus between the Mefarshim. What is, when you have the classic pasuk by Yidaber Hashem and Moshe Lemor, what is the meaning of the word Lemor? Is Lemor going on back on Hashem, the Medaber, means Hashem spoke to Moshe, and as most English translations translate it, Lemor, saying. Saying means it's going back on Hashem, on the subject. Vayedaber Hashem and Moshe, Lemor, and this is what Hashem said, saying. That's one school of thought. The other school of thought is Lemor is for him to say. Hashem spoke to Moshe, Lemor, for him to say. And that's how the standard English, Yiddish translation is Azoy zu sagen. Right? In Cheder, all the kids are underlying. The Eibishter gerät mit Moshe, gerät mit Moshe, Lemor Azoy zu sagen. Meaning that he was supposed to say to Oba, for him to say, for Moshe to say. Who to whom, I mean? To whom was he supposed to say? To the Bnei Yisrael. So in this context, you've got a problem. The next pasuk says, Daber Bnei Yisrael v'mato aleim. Speak to the Bnei Yisrael and say to them. Okay? So it can't be mean to say to them, because that the pasuk says explicitly, speak to Bnei Yisrael and you should say to them. So therefore, Lemor must have a different meaning. So that's what Rashi says over here. You know, this was a seventh. Hashem spoke to Moshe from the tender meaning to say. To say what? Go and tell them words of reproof. So it's a separate word, separate speech that Moshe was to tell Jewish people separately from what's written in Pasuk base. What's written in Pasuk base is regard to the mitzvah of korbanos, and that's what's written over here, and Pasuk base onwards. But the Lemor mentioned here in the end of Pasuk Aleph is telling them, is Hashem's telling Moshe, say over to the people, divrei kvushim, words of reproof. What was he to say? Carry on.
Okay, it says, Bishvilchem hu nidaber imi. Okay, so what's that? For you,
for sake.
Oh, for your sake. Okay. Who nidaber imi? He, meaning Hashem, speaks with me.
Yeah. Now this term nidaber, nidbar actually should be more correctly.
Oh, nidbar, right.
It says when Hashem spoke to Moshe, there were certain times when Hashem spoke to him in direct contact. But other times it's mentioned in the Parshas, end of Parshas Nosai, by Shma'is HaKol midaber elov. It says when Hashem spoke to Moshe, he didn't speak directly. He spoke what he wanted Moshe to hear, but it was not spoken directly to Moshe. He was midaber, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was speaking to himself, but he was speaking those words which he wanted Moshe to hear. That's midaber. So here, nidbar elov means he, I'm not sure it's the right word, he conversationalized with me. Sheken matzinu, carry on.
Matzinu shekol shloshim u'shmona shana shehayu Yisrael b'midbar kimenudim. Okay, so we found that all the 38 years that Israel was in the wilderness, Nudim,
Kaminudim as excommunicated.
Oh,
Menudim means they were in Cherem. They were
okay.
min hamaraglim ve'elech, from the sin of the spies onwards. Yeah.
Lo nityache hadibor im Moshe. Okay, so the dibor, I guess the words of.
Right. It was the divine communication. There was no divine communication with Moshe during those 38 years. How do you know? So it says, "Vayikasha tamu kol anshe hamilchama lamus," and it was when all the men who are eligible for war, those between 20 and 60, they had ended dying. Then it was, "Vayidab Hashem elai leimor." Then Hashem spoke to me, saying, okay, elai hoya adibo. Only then, when the people in the decree that all the men folk between the age of 20 and 60, when that decree had ended, only then again speak to Moshe. Okay, that's one shot. Dova acher.
Say ve'emor lachem divarai. So go out and tell to them my words. V'chashiveni im ikablum, and what bring to me. Hashiveni with ikablum, that they will accept.
Hashiveni and reply to me im yikablum, if they will accept it. Them, meaning the Vashem, the mitzvahs.
Okay.
Moshe Ne'ema, as it says.
Okay. Vayashem Moshe et divrei ha'am. So Moshe
Brought back.
Okay.
The words of the people.
Words of the people.
And Rashi says actually over there, the Maaseh was unnecessary for Moshe to bring back word to say that the people had accepted the word of Hashem, because Hashem knows everything. In other words, Moshe didn't need to inform HaKadosh Baruch Hu that the people had answered in the affirmative, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything that's going on anyway. But nevertheless, we learn from their derech eretz, if somebody sends somebody on a mission to do something, even though he may know the information even before the messenger gets back to him, he should still ask the messenger or accept the messenger's report. Even though he may already know the result already before that. Okay. Pasuk base. Lou, please.
Daber el b'nei Yisrael, Omarta alehem, Adam ki yakri mikem, karban lashem min habehema, min habakar umin hatzon.
Takribu.
Rivu es kar banchem.
Okay.
So speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when a man offers from you, when a man of you offers an offering to Hashem from the cattle,
min habehema, from animals.
From, I guess, what, domesticated animals.
Okay, yeah, he's correct.
From the herd or from the flock,
Okay. Okay.
you shall bring your offering. So Rashi says, let's see, Rashi on number 2.
Yeah, by the way, we see from Parsha that first of all, the animals, we talk about mammals that is, they're divided basically into 2 categories: chayos, behemoths, and chayos. Behemoths are domesticated animals, or more, maybe it's actually it's a machlokes between the Rashi and the and Ramban learns the herbivorous animals, and chayos are wild and non-domesticated animals or carnivorous animals. Basically, it comes to the same thing pretty much. Anyway, Akoponim, here to offer a korban, one is not allowed to offer a korban from a chayo. Anything that's not any non-domesticated animal, even though they are kosher, nevertheless, one's not allowed to offer a korban from such animals. Therefore, deer or giraffe, other what's called which come under the category of chayos, wild animals, non-domesticated. Those are not, one's not allowed to offer as korbanos. What one is allowed to offer as korbanos, and that's what's mentioned over here, are only from domesticated animals. And what are the domesticated animals? There's only 3 types: cattle, sheep, and goats. That's it. And here, so bakar is cattle, is referring to cows, okay? Cows and oxen. And soin is a nomenclature for both sheep and goats in Hebrew. Soin refers to, call it flock or whatever. There is no direct word in English to translate the word soin. Okay, it's a term which includes sheep and goats. So basically, by saying baka and soin, you've covered all types of animals from which one can offer a korban. I mean, we're talking about animals, and not as opposed to birds. Birds are a separate category. Okay. So it says, if you offer from an animal as opposed to a bird, then you offer from cattle or from, call it sheep and goats. You shall offer your korban. Okay, let's see Rashi.
Adam ki yakriv mikem ke she yakriv bekarbonos nidava daber diber ha inyan. So ki, the kaf has the same meaning as kaf shin. Kishe yakriv.
Yeah, no. So what Rashi's pointing out,
when he offers,
right? Ki has 4 meanings. Gemara in Gittin and other places says that ki has 4 meanings. It can mean because, it can mean rather, which neither of them are pertinent over here, or it can mean if, means it's right, and it can mean when. Now, what's the difference between if and when? Because if means it may never happen. If it happens, if this happens, means it's totally arbitrary that it will happen. When means it definitely will happen. Okay? So Rashi is pointing out over here the ki, Adam ki, Yakriv Mikem means if and when you offer well, I'm translating as both, but it's really if. A person, if he offers any man among you, if he offers a sacrifice, an offering to Hashem. And the chat is, if you say if, that means he doesn't have to. There's not necessarily a situation when he must bring this korban. If he decides, if he wants to bring a korban, then this is how he should do it. Okay?
Bikarbonos nidava diber ha'inyan. About voluntary offerings, it is the subject is voluntary offerings.
Right, means the pasuk is talking about, or the subject is talking about voluntary offerings, and therefore it means, doesn't mean necessarily when you do it. If the meaning would be when, that would imply you're for sure going to have to do it sometime. When you do so, it must be like this. So Rashi said, no, that's not the meaning. It means if you offer. It means you're never necessarily obliged to. If you decide that you want to offer a korban, then this is the way you've got to do it. Okay?
Well, if that's the case, what's the shin doing in that word? It should be just ki yakriv.
No, ki, that's as I mentioned out. Ki is ambiguous.
But what's the shin doing in there? Doesn't the shin mean when?
It can mean, just let me check up over here. I translated it. Just 1 second. To the Chumash and Rashi. Vayikra. Yeah. Any man, when he brings, when he wishes to bring. That's what I've added in over here. Yeah. The meaning here is if. Okay, I've got a note over here. That's what it means. Yeah, why Rashi says it the shin, I'm not sure. I don't know. How, as Rashi, Ika wants to point out that when he brings, but it doesn't mean there's never a situation where he has to bring. That's what Rashi points out. Any man among you, if it would mean when he brings, that means for sure he's going to bring sometime. When he does that thing which he took upon himself to bring a korban, when he does that, then this is what he does. This would imply that he must do so. But if it means if, then it makes it voluntary. His obligation to, I mean, it's not obligation. He's bringing a korban is something voluntary. Okay, let's continue to the next Rashi.
Okay. Adam, a man. Lama ne'amar. Why is this said? The commentary says
the word Adam is
rather than the expected ish. Ma
Also,
Adam Harishon.
the word, by the way, I mean the word itself. You don't even need the word ish. The term, the word Adam is totally superfluous. You wouldn't need the word ish either, because ish implies not a woman, and that's not so. Even a woman can bring an oila. Anybody can bring an oila. Even a goy can bring an oila. But okay, so Rashi says. So Rashi explains what's the term Adam telling us, teaching us.
Ma Adam Harishon, just as the first man, lo hikriv min hagazel,
Yeah.
did not bring from something that was stolen. Shehakol haya shalo, because everything was his. Af atem lo sakrivu min hagazel. So too, you shall not bring from something that's stolen.
Right.
Habehema.
Yeah. So by the way, this is a very. Tell me. This is a very interesting question, and this is belong to Adam or Rishon or not?
I'm sorry, can you say that sentence again? I didn't hear the whole thing.
Did everything in the world, when Adam was created, and he was the only man in the world, did everything belong to him or not?
Well, Rashi just told us that everything did belong to him.
No. Rashi tells you that he didn't steal anything.
Kishekol haya shalo. That everything.
Rashi does say that. That is true. No, so the question is why emphasize the negative rather than emphasizing the positive? What I mean is as follows: the Rashi should have said, or the Chazal should have said, "Ma Adam hikriv misheloi, af kol echad hikriv misheloi." Right? So Rashi goes, why do Chazal say, Ma Adam Rishon lo hikriv min hagezel, shakol hoyo sheloi, af atem lo tzakrivu min hagezel? Just say very simply. The Marshal example, there's a din, a lulav, yeah, on the first day of Sukkot, you can't use a borrowed lulav. It must be yours. Because the pasuk says, "Lekachtem lochem b'yom harishon pri'et hadav v'kabel tomorrow v'anaf itzavos v'arbe noch." Okay, you've got to bring the four species, the arba saminim. Anyway, the pasuk said, "Lekachtem lochem," to be yours. Okay, so which Chazal say it's got to be yours. It's got to, you own it. If you borrow somebody else's arba saminim, no good. That's on the first day. The subsequent days, which is only din drabonon, and the din of the Torah doesn't necessarily apply on that day. Mela, that's no problem. You can use somebody borrow, and from the second day onwards, you can borrow somebody else's lulav, and you can perfectly fulfill the mitzvah. But on the first day, it's got to be yours. So why don't I say the same thing over here? If we're making a comparison to Adam, and we're saying, Ma Adam, it was his, so too, anybody wants to bring a korban, he's got to bring his. Otherwise, it's got to be yours. It's got to, why bring in the fact that he wasn't over Gezer? It was like going about a bit of a roundabout way. Now, there's an interesting point, which is Fosh should bring up over here, is that if I'm the only person in the world, do I have to own everything, or is it automatically that I own? Generally, ownership means that it's mine as opposed to somebody else's. But if there's nobody disputing my allowing me to use this object, because I'm the only one around, so what do I need a kinyan for? Okay, it's a little bit of, I'm not going to go into it now, but this is something which the Chayr is mashma from Rashi. Everything in the world only belonged to Adam Arishan, not by virtue that he was the actual, had acquired ownership, but the fact that it was belonged to nobody else, made automatically it was like his. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, continue. Habahema.
Okay. Habehema. So this is domesticated animals. Yachol af chaya bichlal Talmud lomar bakar v'tzon. I might have been able to infer that.
Not infer, but I would have understood that chaya, wild animals, are included. What we mean is as follows. The Gemara is a whole sugi in the Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara says, wherever it says stam chaya or stam behema, it includes all animals, not particularly wild animals, and not domesticated animals. So here, the Rashi is saying, had I just said the word behema without a qualification of baka and soin, so I would have said that behema means any animal. We find that as well. I'll give an example in Krishma. What's the pasuk say? Now it says, doesn't mean dafka your domesticated animals, it means all animals. You also find by Shabbos, your animals and the stranger in your midst.